Ora inizio questo incontro che ha il titolo "Se anche il modello free press va in crisi". Io sono Giuseppe Roma e abbiamo qui con noi Mikael Jensen, che è CEO di Metro International, l'inventore della free press, quindi è una presenza in questo festival che mi pare molto bello, un bel clima, tanta gente, una presenza importante perché è quello che per primo ha lanciato un giornale non a pagamento e che quindi ha molto da dire su questo settore, in generale il settore dei media. L'incontro è organizzato in questo modo: io darò alcuni elementi di quadro che riguarda il nostro Paese e poi Mikael ci farà un suo discorso sul mercato mondiale della free press e cercherà di dare tutte le risposte agli interrogativi che ci sono. Quali sono gli interrogativi? Sappiamo che nel nostro Paese recentemente è in corso una ristrutturazione nell'ambito della free press. Alcuni dei giornali che vedevamo distribuire nelle nostre stazioni non ci sono più, altri hanno avuto una ristrutturazione. Sembrerebbe, questo è il titolo un po' provocatorio, di una crisi della free press. Quello che invece emerge soprattutto per quella che è l'esperienza Censis, cioè dall'indagine e dal rapporto annuale sulla comunicazione, che penso molti di voi conosceranno, è che invece il mondo della free press sta vivendo una fase certamente di ristrutturazione, ma è uno strumento che di per sé ha una grande flessibilità, una grande capacità di raccordo con la sua domanda e che nel nostro Paese in pratica è quello che dal punto di vista dell'utenza, e quindi non parliamo di copie vendute, di lettori o di rilevazioni di questo genere. Noi facciamo un'indagine presso gli italiani e quindi ci dicono cosa fanno, quali mezzi usano. Allora io voglio farla breve perché voglio sentire anch'io Mikael e forse se mandiamo le slide ve le faccio vedere rapidamente. Ci siamo. Allora, primo discorso: è evidente che noi abbiamo la necessità di fare una riflessione, se volete anche di quadro generale, perché nel lungo periodo, diciamo 2002-2000, la rimanda? Scusate. Siamo? Ecco, se guardate il lungo periodo, diciamo gli ultimi 10 anni, 2002-2011, vedrete che nella evoluzione degli utenti c'è un mix fra vecchi e nuovi media. Internet ha aumentato del 25% i suoi utenti, però anche la radio del 15%, i libri, poi i quotidiani in generale, il cellulare naturalmente che è stato 4,2%, fino alla televisione che ha perso un 1% nei 10 anni, ma che riguarda praticamente la totalità degli italiani, che vuol dire che in fin dei conti la vecchia analisi che il mezzo a crearsi il suo mercato non sembrerebbe più vera, perché ci sono mezzi molto vecchi, la radio, che in fin dei conti guadagna più punti e sembra avere un ruolo, l'80% di utenza, che praticamente fa alla pari con il cellulare, che sappiamo invece è il nuovo media, è tutto smartphone, convergenza eccetera. Se guardiamo nel periodo più recente, cioè gli anni della crisi del 2009-2011, noi vedete che i quotidiani in generale, chiaro che i dati poi, ripeto, Audi, Press sono di tipo diverso, ma quando vediamo degli utenti, vedete che i quotidiani con i settimanali sono gli unici che aumentano la loro utenza, oltre internet, naturalmente internet è quello dominante. Aumentano la loro utenza, vedete qui, come somma algebrica di due andamenti. I quotidiani a pagamento diminuiscono del 7%, la free press aumenta, seppur di poco, diciamo che è grosso modo stabile, 1,8%, i quotidiani online anch'essi stabili in aumento 0,5%. Quindi vedete che io adesso non posso fare un lungo discorso, non ripresenterei tutto il discorso della comunicazione, ma capite che oggi parlare di quotidiani, televisione, radio non ha più senso, perché ogni mezzo è splittato in una bouquet d'offerta molto rilevante. Comunque vedete che la nostra indagine 2009-2011 noi abbiamo quasi il 38% degli italiani che sono utenti della free press. Chi sono questi utenti della free press? Beh, certo, si è sempre parlato di un'utenza povera, di pendolari, eccetera. In realtà, come vedete, il 44% sono dirigenti, funzionari, quadri, impiegati, cioè un livello superiore, che è quello che forse più utilizza i mezzi pubblici per spostarsi, soprattutto per ragioni di lavoro, e che quindi alla fine è quello più catturato. Certo, le casalinghe, gli occupati in generale, poi i non occupati sono... Però un altro punto che vorrei dire è che la free press non ha un pubblico di serie B, anzi è un pubblico anche ad alto livello di istruzione, giovani ma anche non giovani, e soprattutto un pubblico di pendolari. Sappiamo che oggi in Italia c'è un enorme incremento del pendolarismo, soltanto negli spostamenti da comune a comune, cioè chi abita in un comune e vive che lavora in un altro comune, abbiamo circa 14 milioni di persone, quindi è un'enorme quantità. Certo che molti vanno in auto, ma una delle ragioni di incremento della domanda potenziale è che sappiamo che oggi c'è un passaggio per ragioni economiche dal mezzo proprio al mezzo pubblico, e quindi il mezzo pubblico, la stazione, l'autobus eccetera, sono tutti luoghi che quei 20 minuti che sono quelli che normalmente vengono utilizzati per leggere un giornale free sono esattamente coperti da chi fa un percorso pendolare. C'è quest'altro discorso, secondo tema che consegno a Michael, il rapporto fra carta stampata e digitale. Vedete che cresce il numero di coloro che sono arrivati al 45%, che sono estranei all'uso di mezzi a stampa, e non sono più solo gli emarginati, non sono più quelli con bassa scolarità, ma sono anche chi va sul digitale, utilizza un'informazione che non passa più attraverso i quotidiani. Però dovete comunque considerare che, mettendo insieme le varie tipi di utenze, e quindi le varie diete mediatiche, come le chiamiamo noi, ancora il 54% è centrato sull'utilizzo di carta stampata, e quindi abbiamo ancora una forte quantità di persone che sono legate alla carta stampata, e abbiamo visto la carta stampata che è però una sorta di internet di carta, perché la free press ha molte similitudini con l'informazione su internet, è gratuita, è sintetica, in più è già selezionata, mentre ormai sulla rete si comincia ad avere un'enorme confusione di offerte informativa. Però queste due caratteristiche, essere gratuita, essere sintetica, dare le informazioni, secondo me è molto importante per capire perché è vitale e perché c'ha un futuro anche nel nostro Paese. Vedete che anche dal punto di vista dell'informazione i quotidiani gratuiti vengono prima dei siti di informazione internet, prima dei quotidiani online, e io ritengo che questo sia un dato a cui riferirsi, perché guardate, una parte, a mio modo di vedere, della crisi della carta stampata a pagamento è che molti quotidiani sono diventate la densità d'opinione che c'è nei quotidiani è superiore a quella dell'informazione, quindi la free press, per questo dico, non è un prodotto di serie B, è un prodotto di informazione, mentre sappiamo che i quotidiani di varie, sia i grandi quotidiani nazionali che, se volete, anche i quotidiani legati a particolari gruppi di interesse, sono tutti fortemente spinti nella missione di creare un'opinione pubblica, non di informare, e poi l'opinione pubblica se la fanno con la propria valutazione dei fatti. E quindi non mi meraviglia che nelle fonti di informazione i quotidiani gratuiti siano prima dei siti online, anche perché è vero che la concorrenza col digitale è molto forte, però il digitale è anche fatto anch'esso di tantissimo. Se voi vedete gli utenti di internet, che è poi la base, sono il 53%, quelli di news da motori di ricerca 41%, web di informazione 37%, Facebook, YouTube, TV, streaming, cioè il digitale oggi non è attribuibile a un solo canale informativo, a una sola funzione informativa. Per esempio, se voi vedete qui, quotidianamente l'utilizzo della rete per fare attività che nulla hanno a che vedere con i media, perché stiamo parlando di musica, acquisti, prenotazione di viaggi. Quindi, come vedete, noi dobbiamo ritornare all'idea di un quotidiano che ha caratteristiche simili a quelle di internet, ma ha un forte carattere informativo, e credo che questo sia un dato molto importante. Chiudo dicendo che c'è anche un tema di reputazione, perché molto spesso dei quotidiani della free press si dice beh, però la qualità, non ci sono le firme, eccetera. Io penso che però sta nel grande canale di una reputazione che comunque migliore di quella della televisione, perché come vedete il giudizio della reputazione per quanto riguarda i principali media, vedete che vede internet al primo posto, ma questo lo sapete è un'ambiguità, perché internet si dice in maniera filistea che c'è la fonte diretta, io vedo le cose così come sono, e voi sapete che non è vero, perché poi internet ha proprio il limite di non avere filtri e quindi da un certo punto di vista ti dà delle informazioni in presa diretta, ho la documentazione, posso guardare quello che succede, però dall'altra parte non c'è nessuno che si responsabilizza, quindi internet ci starei abbastanza attento. La reputazione della radio invece deriva proprio dal fatto che è un mezzo altamente, dove c'è la mediazione, c'è la contestualità, c'è anche però l'approfondimento, e poi c'è l'intrattenimento naturalmente. Quindi io penso che, chiudo, se dovessi dare una risposta per quanto riguarda l'Italia, io non avrei dubbi. Il modello free press si sta ristrutturando. Si è pensato che fare free press sia una cosa semplice, il meccanismo è ben chiaro, si sa chi paga, il mercato qual è, e quindi tutti quanti si sono messi a fare. Forse c'è un eccesso, nei mercati nazionali come quello italiano ci sono dei limiti, perché è chiaro che andare a fare la free press in una piccola o una media città abbassa di molto il bacino potenziale di utenza e quindi può andare in crisi. Pensare, come qualcuno ha fatto, di fare il Corriere della Sera della free press vuol dire avere dei costi così alti che non reggono all'impatto pubblicitario in un momento così difficile per tutta la raccolta pubblicitaria, e quindi è chiaro che se i revenues sono quelli, è chiaro che devi avere grande attenzione. Per questo io stimo molto Mikael, perché è riuscito, come vi dirà, a mettere in piedi una rete gigantesca in tutto il mondo e ha una grande capacità di studiare i mercati e cercare dove andare, sapendo che 28 paesi europei comunque vedono la presenza di almeno un quotidiano non a pagamento, che comunque questo mercato ha ancora dei potenziali inespressi che sono tutti legati a come fai impresa, a come fai quel particolare prodotto editoriale che ha le sue regole, ma devono essere anche cambiate, innovate e adeguate alla domanda, che come abbiamo visto è una domanda abbastanza sofisticata, che ha anche prospettive del tutto particolari. Io mi fermo qui perché spero come voi, sono molto curioso che Mikael Jensen ci parli da inventore e maggiore editore in tutto il mondo della free press, di quale sarà l'avvenire, perché io penso che la free press un avvenire ce l'avrà senz'altro. Grazie.
Thank you very much. Very happy to hear that free press in Italy is also growing. That happens to be the case in most of the countries where we publish our free newspaper, which is currently around 25 countries. In the entire world, it's actually 115 countries that have free newspapers, and we produce every fourth of those. So 25% of all free newspapers in the world is produced by Metro. Every day we print around 10 to 11 million copies, and every day we have a readership around 22 million people who reads Metro on a single day. That's why when we do something bigger, I don't know if you noticed, but some time ago we had a partnership with Karl Lagerfeld. A few months ago, Lady Gaga was the editor-in-chief of Metro. That campaign in total gained 1 billion people who read it either in the newspaper or saw it in the TV because Reuters was covering the event. And that is obviously one of the ways that we are different to other free newspapers because of our network, so we can do some quite spectacular things. I hope that Michelle Obama will be the editor-in-chief of our newspaper in October, which will be very interesting for us because it's leading up to the American election. And obviously these people do it because of the scale of Metro. Reaching 25 million people in one event is quite something. Free newspapers is a phenomenon that was invented in Sweden in 1995 and has spread throughout the world. We have seen that in a lot of countries and also in Italy, a lot of people wanted to enter the free newspaper market, and that led to, as you said, a saturation of the market where there was too many free newspapers on some markets. In Italy, we have seen the market consolidate, so some has closed. I think it's 3 newspapers that has closed by now. Metro, in all of the countries where we had competition, I would say we lost one, which was in Spain, 2009. The rest of the countries, Metro is still standing and is actually doing very, very well. What is important, of course, is not only that you have a good distribution, that you have a good business model, that you have healthy advertisers. The most important thing is that you get the product, the newspaper, right. And secondly, that you understand how to adapt to the local market situation. So in some countries, a Metro newspaper, for example in Canada, is very often 100 pages or up to 128 pages. So it's a very, very thick newspaper in Canada. In my home country in Denmark, the average Metro newspaper is around 60 pages. In Hong Kong, we do 50 pages. Seoul in South Korea, very often around 80 pages. Whereas in some of the new markets in Latin America, you see much thinner newspapers, down to 20 pages, 24 pages. I believe your average is 28 or 24. Now, obviously, it would be hugely expensive to produce 128 pages in Rome and Milan and the other cities where we publish in Italy. So you have to adapt to the local market conditions. But most importantly, you have to adapt to the local understanding of journalism. I'm a journalist myself, worked as a journalist for 15 years, began in 1986, so therefore I'm very sad to see the development for the paid-for newspapers. I do not wish them bad times. Unfortunately, I don't think we can meet in Perugia in 10 years from now and discuss success of the paid-for media. It will inevitably decline. A lot, I would say up to 75% of the newspapers you know today will disappear, they will close. They may be online, they may be on mobile, but as a printed product, I would say as an average in Europe, probably 75% of them will either disappear and close or become a very, very tiny niche product on the market. At the same time, and what we see particularly right now in Canada, Northern Europe and so on, is that the free press keeps getting better and better and better in terms of content, in terms of journalism, and in terms of impact on society. And the main reason for that is in Sweden, for example, the original country of Metro, the readership of Metro is now almost twice as big as the second newspaper on the market. And that means that every politician, every president, every businessman considers Metro the most significant newspaper in the country because of its readership and quality, I would like to add. But when that situation comes to Italy, I would expect that the same thing will happen because of our readership, which is really our currency towards advertisers and towards sources, the people we deal with. I will hope and believe that we will see a similar development in the market. Secondly, the newspaper that we launched nearly 20 years ago now is developing constantly. So in some of the northern European markets and in Latin America, you see a newspaper with a lot more longer interviews, longer articles, more journalists, staff or newsrooms that are getting quite comparable with the traditional newspapers in the market. So it's a tough situation for the paid-for media because they are on a decline when it comes to financials, readership, circulation, and so on. We are increasing on revenues. We are profitable. We get more readers. We invest more in newsrooms. We produce better products and attract more people. That's the general situation as it looks right now and has been looking for the last 2 to 3 years. Today, I do not consider other printed newspapers our main competitor, particularly in the countries where you have a high penetration of smartphones. Mobile phones and mobile devices, whether they're phones or tablets, is the #1 competitor of free newspapers, not other printed media. And as I said, I'm very sad for that development. I love good newspapers, I read them all the time, but it is a development which is unfortunately very, very, very difficult to change. What really saddens me in all this is that very few newspaper companies in the good old days, in the 90s and during this decade, invested money in digital and media, because it means that almost throughout the world, there's not a single newspaper group, apart from one in Norway, who is doing very well in digital media. And that is really sad, because newspapers back then had a lot of cash, a lot of money, produced good profits. Unfortunately, we didn't invest them in the future. We either paid them out as dividends or used them on newsrooms that were inefficient, production methods that were old-fashioned, distribution methods that had got nothing to do with journalism or content, but mainly was either a show-off towards your competitors or simply because we did not take the industry seriously. So newspapers, and I know a lot of editors in different countries, and they're almost all of them very charming people and intelligent people, and they're very good fun, and I like talking with them. But I hate when they start complaining. And I have, over the last 10 years, editors and publishers have been more and more complaining about something that they actually had the power to change, but they didn't because the situation was too comfortable. Now it's too late. You will see paid newspapers close. You will see free media, whether they are on print or they are digital, increase. And unfortunately, that's how I see the development in newspapers. A product that I like so much and I love so much. I do not watch much TV because I think it takes far too long time to get the information that I want. I'm special because I'm a journalist. I'm educated within media. But my reading ability is so much faster than my watching and listening ability. I can eat so many more words when I read them compared to if I listen or watch them. I do believe that there will be a few newspapers, also paid for newspapers, remaining on the market. I think a lot of them will move towards publishing twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, maybe a strong weekend edition. I believe in niche products. I believe in strong financial newspapers. Sports newspapers is a bit not quite sure about that, to be honest, because especially if they're paid for, because that's one of the areas where you have so much information online, and very often, like when you have Champions League or World Cup or those things, speed is really of essence. And so if Gazzetta dello Sport tells me today that Bayern Munich made it to the final in Champions League, that is really old news for me. What counts for me is I want to see the goals if I don't have time to see the entire match. I want to see the goals, I want to know what happened, and I want to know it 2 seconds after it happened. I do not have time to wait 10 hours, unless there's a very, very, very good journalist who explains things better than anyone else in the world could do. Then I might invest 10 minutes in reading him. The problem is that those people might today be available in print only, or mainly in print. 10 years from now, these guys will be available on any kind of blog, mobile device, SMS service, whatnot. So I was about to say I come in peace, and I do. I'm very sad to deliver a message on behalf of newspapers, which is paid for newspapers, which is quite saddening. I would argue that a lot of the paid for media should start paying more interest to free newspapers. I think we will not only survive, but I think actually we will come out strengthened during this crisis. As I said, in most countries we do not consider newspapers our main competitor. We consider mobile devices our main competitor. Mobile devices will not take our ads. I don't know if maybe we should do this by hand so you get a bit of exercise. Did anyone in this room ever click an ad on your mobile device? Ever? Do you understand the question? Did anyone ever click an ad? Yeah? Was it by accident, or was it because you wanted to see what was behind the ad?
Assolutamente volutamente, ma credo che forse sia anche un caso, magari il campione non è attendibile, ma siano, nel senso ovviamente numerico, ma siano in un'evoluzione le persone che cliccano anche attraverso i dispositivi mobili di vario genere. Penso a SkyGo, per esempio, che io ho scoperto soltanto adesso in questo frangente del festival per motivi di carattere logistico, che è stata una straordinaria rivoluzione sul mobile. Non so se lei conosce il prodotto, che ha anche queste versioni pubblicitarie su cui si può poi cliccare.
Okay. Okay. And this might be good news for newspapers and magazines. Advertising, traditional advertising on mobile devices is really not very efficient. The country in the world with the second highest penetration of smartphones, which is Denmark, 80% of the population has a smartphone, which is online. On top of that, in all public transport in Copenhagen, there's free Wi-Fi, which actually works. So in the second you enter a bus or a subway, you are online for free on your mobile device. So in Copenhagen, we invest quite a lot of money into research and see what does that mean to the way we use free media, such as free newspapers or free magazines. And it's interesting what you described about the development in TV, radio, books, magazines, and so on, because what seems to be happening is exactly the same that has happened every time this world has been introduced to a new platform. The new platform, in this case mobile devices, takes its fair share of the market, but what mainly happens is that consumers start spending more time on media than they did before this new platform. And that's the picture that we can see from Copenhagen. It takes away a little bit of reading time from the newspaper, but it doesn't take away reading time or it doesn't replace reading a newspaper. We have now for 10 years in journalism, we've been discussing the nearby death of television because people could get any kind of program they wanted in online. You know, the TiVos, the PVRs that has been quite popular in US for 10 years, never really made it in Europe. The devices where you can record a program and you can see it whenever you want to see it, even live. That hasn't really made it in Europe, and my guess on that is that TV is a social phenomenon. It's something you do with your friends or with your family. You gather around a TV set and you enjoy relaxing, having a cup of tea or whatever you're doing. So even though internet, mobile devices and all that are very, very powerful media platforms, they will not replace existing platforms. Radio is fantastic when you're doing other things and your hands are not available, mainly when you're driving. Radio is fabulous. I was in the gym this morning in the hotel, which is a lovely gym. If you stay here, you should go there. There's a very nice swimming pool as well, and it was completely empty. I didn't have a radio signal, unfortunately. I wish I had, because radio is perfect for being in the gym or driving a car or being on the beach or whatever you do where you don't have your preferred media. Excuse me. The way we're going to grow Metro, we are investing a lot of money in Latin America. Last year we launched Metro in 3 new countries, in Peru, in Colombia and in Guatemala. We were already in Mexico, in Chile, in Brazil, and in Ecuador. This year, I hope we can do another 2 or 3 countries in Latin America, meaning that we will be covering 90% of the entire population in Latin America. If you have time, you should go to our corporate website where you can find all the editions from around the world. And I guess being Italian, you will understand most of the Spanish. Our newspaper in Colombia is fantastic. It's a very, very, very good, high-quality newspaper in politics, in business, foreign news, sports, and entertainment. I really, really like it. So Latin America is where it's happening for us. We have been negotiating in China now for 3 years. I hope that soon we can conclude those negotiations and launch a metro in probably the most fascinating country in the world right now, with so much potential that it's almost scary. Right. I think I'll stop here. If you have any questions, I'm very happy to take your questions, and I also look forward to discuss digital media with you.
Ci sono domande? Ci sono domande? Prego.
Posso, nel frattempo che arriva il microfono, sarò velocissimo.
Allora facciamo prima lui che...
Visto che il tema di oggi è la crisi del free
se
press,
magari vi presentate così
sì,
anche lui sa.
Roberto Conte, responsabile dell'ufficio stampa dell'Università di Napoli sull'Orso la Benincasa. Visto che il tema di oggi è la crisi del free press, invece qui si è giustamente disegnato, quantomeno per quanto riguarda il gruppo Metro, un momento assolutamente florido, addirittura in espansione, in crescita. Eppure in Italia, ed è notizia recentissima di un paio di mesi fa, un gruppo florido da un punto di vista editoriale come RCS ha chiuso le sue edizioni free press di un giornale assolutamente molto letto, un grande punto di riferimento, che aveva in tutte le edizioni cittadine esclusivamente 16 redattori assunti, chiamiamoli così, incardinati. Com'è possibile che in un momento positivo per il free press, dove ci sono poche spese, tutto sommato discrete raccolte pubblicitarie, poi si assista a un fallimento di questo tipo? Lei che idea si è fatto?
Mainly by saying that there's a lot of things that we're very bad at doing, but there's one thing we're very, very good at doing, and that's free newspapers. It's what we've been doing for close to 20 years. Sometimes I say that our biggest asset are all the mistakes we have made in so many countries now, and luckily we tend only to make mistakes maximum twice, big mistakes only once. And I would say, it's natural. If what you do is producing free newspapers, and if you're a fairly intelligent company with great people, you will learn how to survive in tough times like we have survived in Italy. Italy has always been a struggle for Metro International for many, many reasons. One of them being a lot of competition from the very beginning, another one being difficult distribution in the beginning also. But because of our experience, not only from Italy, but from other countries, Metro Italy has been giving it a very good fight and is now in a fantastic position in Italy to start growing again. Maybe just one comment on the, I know you're not advertising people, but they do pay your salary, so it's important for you to know the CPMs on mobile devices and digital in general are microscopic compared to the CPMs, the cost per thousand for advertisers in magazines and newspaper. The CPM in digital media, in my opinion, and others' opinion as well, are not only very low now, they are trending towards zero. And at some point, you might have a situation where you actually say that advertising on digital media is free. Because you will either create your own channels, or you will create networks based on social network or all kinds of things. So there is actually no market for charging for digital advertising, apart from very, very high-profile advertising in specific niche, high-quality, irreplaceable media platforms. Think of it in another way. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, newspapers, La Stampa, Il Messaggero in Italy had, 10, 15 competitors? If you are a newspaper group and you have a website and a mobile services, your competitors comes in millions, and some would say trillions even. I do not have the specific figure for Italy, but in Europe, in general, 50% of all ad spending in countries goes directly out of Italy to US. They go to Facebook and they go to Google. I find it very difficult to see any need from an advertiser that couldn't be solved by one of the giants on the internet world today, so Facebook, Google, and the likes. Very difficult. I would find it very difficult to see what La Stampa would do that cannot be done by one of the top 10 internet giants in the world. And so all the money, unfortunately, will leave this country and be sent to California.
Ok, mi sembra risposta esaustiva, ma non finiremo mai di discutere di questo in Italia perché abbiamo... Prego.
Thank you. University of Finance, Anna, Moscow, Russia. Thank you. I have a question to Mr. Jensen. What are the most profitable markets for your newspaper? Is it in developing countries or developed? That's the question.
Well, actually, in our most profitable newspaper right now is St. Petersburg in Russia. The second most is Mexico City. The third most profitable is Moscow.
The third is?
Moscow in Russia.
And why?
In Moscow, Metro enjoys being something. I hope you will agree to this because obviously you're the specialist. I'm not, but Metro enjoys the fact of being something completely different to what exists on the Russian market. We are not Kommersant, we are not Pravda, we are not all these newspapers who has a history and a connection with different parties, political or... So when I meet Russian readers in Moscow, they say, thank you for this newspaper because we trust it. It's a very nice newspaper. It's something completely different. Our margins, our profit margins in Russia are almost too good to be true. And I'm afraid of that because if it is too good to be true, then it probably will change. But it's a very, very, very profitable market for us.
Anche perché la Pravda una volta era data gratuitamente, per cui...
Are you going to launch your newspaper in other Russian cities? There are, of course, other most populated cities.
Yeah, we have launched recently weekly free newspapers in Kazan and in Novograd. And we are looking at expanding the network of free weekly newspapers. And that's a thing that I think will come to Italy as well, that some of the people in printed media, not for Metro, because we believe that we can continue a strong business as a daily newspaper Monday to Friday. But I think you will see a lot of different models where newspaper groups take out the days that cost you a lot of money. I don't know the specific pattern in Italy, but I would guess that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are loss-making. And I would guess that Friday and probably Sunday are profitable. Maybe Monday because of sports, but definitely Friday and Sunday in Italy. And, in a situation where money is getting smaller and competition from other media is getting bigger, there's only one way you can survive the crisis, unless, of course, you have endless amounts of money waiting to be spent, and that is to adapt to a new reality.
Prego, lì.
I'm Claire Martinez. I'm an Italo-Venezuelan journalist. I live in Italy now. My question is, you mentioned that you want to expand to Latin America, and I was wondering whether Venezuela was in your plans and how you planned to deal with the Venezuelan government and the issues that a newspaper faces over there.
Sorry, did you say Venezuela?
Yes.
No. We have been there a few times, but Chavez and the political system makes it impossible to produce an independent newspaper. I would say Argentina is very close of getting onto that list of countries that are not really reliable, to be honest. I mean, if you wake up one morning and your company has been nationalized by the president, then what do? There's so many other great countries where we can do newspapers. We're looking into Middle East quite a lot. And also the traditional Arabic countries such as Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, when hopefully things calm down, Iraq. I think there's a fantastic opportunity in Middle East. That goes for all media, by the way. And I'm very impressed and inspired by the success of Al Jazeera. I think there are a few companies in the world who has understood that part of the future might be global. Sky is one of them. They are very busy launching media around the world. And I think that's something that, I guess that most of you in this room are journalists. I think it's something you should really keep in mind, that the future might not be within national, traditional journalism, but in a international or global situation or tradition. I would find it, for example, for those who are interested in fashion, we have seen that the readers and the consumers of fashion content are very happy to move to foreign language websites because, if their need to read about fashion is big enough, then they will do so. We have seen that some of the American websites, obviously helped by language also, but they have a huge audience and followers in outside US. Huffington Post is a good example. I also believe that what we generally call high quality journalism, even though it's a funny way of putting it, but that will become international because that's the nature of the internet. It will be shared, it will be commented, it will be developed from many countries. Many of the challenges that this world is facing are truly international phenomena that you cannot solve on a national level.
Altre domande? Prego. Abbiamo ancora...
Velocemente, sapere quali sono i principali errori nella storia di Metro che ha riscontrato nei mercati dove lui prima parlava di errori secondari accaduti poche volte e un errore primario accaduto una volta sola, presuppongo in Spagna. Quali sono questi errori, insomma, se è lecito saperlo. E poi sul discorso della redditività della pubblicità online, insomma, il suo è sicuramente un punto di vista autorevole, ma parziale, in quanto sono i suoi diretti concorrenti, i media online, come diceva prima. E, sul fatto, non ho capito se lei parlava di bassissima redditività dell'advertising online soltanto per il mobile o proprio per tutto l'online?
If you look at the Q1 report that was issued by New York Times, I think it was last week, New York Times, normally considered one of the best newspapers in the world, normally considered, and that's a fact, one of the newspapers and media groups that has spent most money in developing an online strategy. If you dig into their Q1 report, you would see 2012 compared to 2011, you would see that they had a decline in revenues from advertising. Decline was only...
All advertising.
No, digital advertising.
Digital.
So money spent on the many websites run by New York Times was lower in Q1 2012 compared to 2011. And the development for online advertising for New York Times has been doing more or less like this, so a hockey stick, flattening out, and then now was the first quarter we have seen where revenues on digital advertising, mobile, computers, tablets, whatever, is actually on a decline. I think if you think about capitalism in its purest shape and form, the ground rule is that if there's plenty of inventory, prices will come down. And I honestly believe that that's what's happening in this situation. There's so much inventory in the world, digital, that is available for everybody. Last time Google counted, there was more than 1 billion unique websites in this world. In theory, they can all carry advertising. Now, we are used to, as printed media, TV, and so on, that advertisers naturally will come to media business to do advertising. But why would they? In Sweden, you have a quite big group young bloggers who are making very good money, mainly on fashion, sports, and stuff like that. But they are not, 15 years ago they would not be considered media companies or competitors to us. Today they are competitors. Some of the big American websites, Politico, HuffPost, Daily Beast, and so on, didn't exist 6 years ago. Today they are, and I congratulate them for it because they are professional businesses and good content providers. So why shouldn't they take that advertising? So a market where you have competition that is endless, and it really is. Your prices will come down and they will trend towards zero. And as I said, maybe a bit provocative, I would not be surprised if advertising is free in 10 years from now, apart from universes that really offer something unique. So, the mistakes? The biggest one I'm not going to tell you about because that's the real asset of the company. But a few times we have made the mistake of entering a country with a product, a newspaper, that was placed at the wrong level, where our analysis of the situation with the existing print media was not good enough simply. This is one of the reasons that I like our newspaper in Colombia, which is now only half a year old, because I really think we got the level right in that newspaper. And the comments that I get from media professionals, journalists, media agencies, politicians is outstanding. I was in the country a few months ago and spent almost 2 hours with President Santos of the country, who said that this is a great newspaper. And I understand you are now in 7 countries in Latin America. This is fantastic. He really liked it, and he wouldn't tell me that if he didn't. But it is a highly respected newspaper after only 6 months in Colombia. Good news, for example, or also from Latin America, we have been famous for not really investing in digital media. We did an experiment in Chile where we had no websites 2 years ago. We put quite a lot of money behind it, launched different kinds of websites, hired journalists, and from zero traffic 2 years ago, we now have 3.5 million unique visitors per month in Chile, which is approximately 20% of the population and 40% of those who are online. So within 2 years, from zero to reaching 40% of the audience has made me very, very happy, because that means that we're not even a second mover on the internet market. We are, 8th mover on the internet. But because of the power of the newspaper, we can attract an audience to the right stories, and we can build a business. And I was honestly a bit surprised about that. But now we're looking at rolling that business model into other countries, and Gianpaolo and I and Mr. Farina are going to discuss what we can do in Italy in that way.
Allora, siccome abbiamo altri 2 minuti, lasciate fare, se non c'è altri, ma insomma, lasciate fare l'ultima domanda a me, perché ho sentito con piacere per questo che il modo di fare i giornali, per il fatto che siano gratuiti, non è detto che non possa inventare un prodotto di alta qualità, perché diceva Michael che in Svezia è il secondo giornale, quindi a quel punto è un modo di fare il giornale che vince, non è più il fatto di essere gratuito o meno. E quindi, siccome siamo qui nella casa dei giornalisti, credo che chiedo a Michael se ci sia anche una sfida intellettuale, non solo per adattarsi ai vari mercati, come lui ben ha detto, ma perché in generale questo prodotto, che vive in una logica diversa ma tutta di mercato, potrebbe anche incentivare del buon giornalismo. Lui pensa che nel futuro la free press può essere una palestra di buon giornalismo?
Absolutely. I think if newspapers weren't invented, somebody would invent them tomorrow, and it would be all over the world where people would be praising this new product, print, for its efficiency, its clarity, its a great way of presenting complicated material. I really do believe that print as a product is superior to many, many other media platforms. I wouldn't say superior, but it has qualities that are very difficult to get in other platforms. For example, I find mobile devices fantastic for short news and I find them fantastic for news I really want as soon as they happen. I would not read an analysis on what's going on in Argentina on my mobile phone. I would if I had to, but I wouldn't do it with pleasure. And these are physical reasons. Screen is too small. I need battery, which is a constant problem for me. The only thing I miss in life is wireless power to all my devices, because they always run out. A newspaper is excellent for getting the overview very quickly with different inputs from left and right, or north and south, or rich and poor. It's very good in giving you a graphical understanding of things. I think if you look at some of the great graphics also in Italian newspapers, they give you the overview very, very, very quickly. I don't know if, I'm sure you know this, but if you take a news program on TV, which is half an hour, and you transcribe everything that's said in that TV program, even including small comments like camera is zooming in on this host, or camera is moving, or you transcribe all that, all the information in a half-hour TV program, it will take up less than 1 page in La Stampa. Less than 1 page. So the actual information you get from a TV program, which is half an hour long, can be in less than 1 newspaper page. Of course, you get a lot more in the news program on TV. You get emotions. You get to see what happened, maybe. You'll get to see that Berlusconi actually did say this and that, and he wore a blue suit, and he seemed to be in a great mood or whatever. All that you don't get in the transcription, but all the information can be in less than 1 page. I think that when I'm surfing the internet, which I do far too long every day, I try to compare that experience with what happens if I read a newspaper. And one way of explaining it is that when I'm surfing on my mobile devices or whatever, I'm the captain. I'm the captain of the aeroplane. I decide where I want to go. I decide if I want to go left or right. I am in control of the information that's being put in front of me. What happens if I'm reading a magazine or a newspaper is that every time I turn a page, somebody else has already been the captain. And somebody else has been decided that this is what you should be exposed to, because this is very important, or this is very entertaining, or this is very good for you to know. You could also say that somebody else cooked my meal, and sometimes it's really nice to go to a restaurant and make sure that the chef is good. You have a nice combination of vitamins, proteins, and whatnot, and you're just enjoying really what you're doing with that printed product. That's why I'm saying that if print was not invented today, somebody would invent it, and the rest of the world would say, this is a fantastic platform.
Ok, sono le 4:30, dobbiamo lasciare la sala. Grazie a Michael e grazie a tutti voi.